Today we're building out my Bowtech Core SS. I did decide to go with the flat dark earth, which I am really digging it. It's more like a mud color in my opinion, but you know, it looks sharp to me. It's about to look a lot flashier though. So anytime you're restringing a bow, obviously you're gonna need a bow press. I highly recommend anything from Last Chance Archery when it comes to bow presses. They're arguably the best in the business, and they're absolutely phenomenal to work with in general. And they're a Georgia company. With the threads, custom bowstrings, as always, I went with white with fluorescent purple serving and white shrink wrap around the speed knocks. Gonna give this bland mud color a little snazz, little pop. So a lot of people tend to get intimidated whenever it comes to restringing a bow, which is understandable because obviously if you've never dealt with it before or done anything like it, it's, could be a little confusing, but there's actually a very simple process I like to use and still use to this day, even though I've restrung thousands of bows, to make sure I'm putting all the correct strings and cables back correctly with the new strings. The first thing we're going to do, apply pressure. And with the Bowtech, they got this really flexible flex guard, if you want to call it that. So you got to put a little bit more pressure than most, and you really want your string to be able to do like that, be able to rotate your cams a little bit. And you always want to take the string off first. So we're going to do that. Pop it off the bottom cam. Come up here, pop it off the top. And these will come with, pretty much every string manufacturer does it some sort of way. Threads just uses paper clips to connect all their teardrops so you don't have them twist or anything. I'm gonna take the string and put it on my little post right here because I know I'm gonna use it last, even though I took the string off first. The string is gonna be the easiest thing to put back on because it's kind of hard to screw up. Like literally one post here for the string to hook on, and then you're good to go. Now this is a 3-piece string and cable set, so I got 2 cables and 1 string, and this is going to be arguably the easiest style of strings and cables to take on and off because there's only 3. Some bow manufacturers have a lot more. So right here I got the flex guard that actually has a little Allen key, and I'm going to have to loosen that in order to get the cables out from underneath this roller guard here. Really want to make sure you get it in there and don't strip that out, because then you'll be calling Bowtech. What I'll actually do is take one and set it down here. Let's see if I can get the other one out. A little bit more. I try to leave the screw in there, less parts to keep up with. There we go. Alright, so if we're working from the top cam, for a good rule of thumb is to remember what cam you want to work off of, because what we're going to do at the top is going to be the same thing we do to the bottom. So as long as we start with the top correctly, we're going to end with the bottom correctly. And what I mean by that is you want to pay attention to the length of the serving, if it's going over the top and around the post, or if it's going up underneath the cam to that post, because that's going to have 2 different servings, because obviously you got more serving down here than up here. And the reason for this is because when this cam rotates, the serving or slash string goes into the track, and then you want to make sure that there's the correct amount of serving down there to protect your string. So since I got this cable right here that's going to go closest to the inside of the roller guard, I want to go ahead and do that one first. So I'm just going to rotate this cam forward a little bit, give me some more slack, pull it off the teardrop, and then I'm going to take it off the bottom cam. Now, so you don't forget where you were, we're going to go ahead and take one of the new cables and replace it with the old one we just took off. Now, once again, if you look here, you've got a lot more serving on this side than this one. And what we just talked about is you want to make sure, whoops, try not to lose the twist in your string like I just did. Well, it's going to be out of time. Oh well. You want to make sure you put the correct side on the correct side of the cam. Sorry, I got this all out. Put that on, then I'm actually going to go ahead and come around here and put it in the roller guard. And now I'm going to route it the correct way through the bottom cam. These Bowtechs do have pretty aggressive routing systems on these cams. Don't be afraid to apply more pressure. I mean, to an extent. Alright, we got our first cable on. Now we're going to take our other cable off. I'm going to start from the bottom, just detach it, come up here, off this post. And basically all you're doing is as you take it off, you're putting one back so you don't ever forget where the string goes correctly. Because if you take all the strings and cables off and you're just left with a naked bow, you're gonna be like, do I go this way? Do I go that way? You don't ever want that to happen. I'm actually gonna start with the top first this time. So I know it goes around. Push it through that post. Then I'll come down. Pull through here. Alright, got all that on, so now I want to go ahead and tighten up this screw. Alright, if you're ever kind of curious about whether or not you've got the cables on to begin with before we go into the string, if you just take your cams and flex them down, if they feel like they have the equal amount of weight on both of them, then you more likely did it right. And also it kind of gives you an idea to see if anything's popping in and out of the tracks as well. So now we're going to the easy part, the string. If you ever wonder how to figure out which side of the string goes where, pretty much every string on the market, to my knowledge, is going to have a little serving down here on one side and not on the other side. That is specifically served for your string stop. So when your string comes back, you draw the bow, you shoot it, that serving hits the string stop instead of the bare string. And also, pretty much all manufacturers also put this little piece of twine in here as well. That's dividing the string perfectly down the middle for your peep. So that's another indicator. And don't be scared to press it, because you're gonna have a lot of slack in your string from routing it because it's not broke in. So in order to get it to each post / teardrop, then you're gonna have to apply more pressure, because like right here, you got a kink in it because the packaging from the serving, and it's just holding it at like a weird spot basically. It looks like we got it all on, so I'm gonna pull up on it. So I got one that's out of the track right here. I need to correct that. And it's the same thing up here, which is very common for Bowtechs when they're in a press. So now I'm gonna hold pressure. I'm gonna slowly add pressure on. So if you watch right here, I've got pressure on the bow, obviously, from where I just routed this cable. And when I start letting out the bow press and it's gonna put the pressure back on the limbs, they're gonna tighten up this cable. Before you take the bow out of the press, just double check your work to make sure everything's where it needs to be. And before you take your bow completely out of the press, I still got a little bit of tension on here. Just double check to make sure everything's still on the correct post, teardrops. Make sure you didn't have one jump the tracks or anything like that, because it'll let you know as soon as you take too much tension off. That already looks like a killer. On to the next step. We're gonna come over here to our October Mountain Micro Adjust vise. Throw this bad girl in there. Get it where we need her. Now we're gonna install our rest. Going with the Hamskea Hybrid Hunter Pro because it hasn't let me down, so I don't plan on switching. I tried to get the color to match best I could. Well, not me, but Hamskea tried. And it's close enough. But I mean, deer don't care what color it is when you're shooting at them. Trust me, I've asked. Burr bolt I got here is not the one that comes with it, because I don't know where it's at currently, but it'll do the job the same. Just want to get her started to where she applies a little bit of pressure. And then what I like to do is see if everything looks even and straight. She looks good right there. And then we're going to get on it. Now here's something to pay attention to. Here's something to pay close attention to. You notice that this rest has actually been moved down a little bit. Well, we want it moved up into the middle in a neutral zone. That way, if we have to make any adjustments up or down with our rest, we have plenty of room and don't have to, restart over with a new knocking point. Just so y'all know, the best Allen key ever for a Hamskea is the one that comes with the QADs. All right, we got that in a neutral position. Now we want to tighten down our little set screw right here. Right now we got to fasten down our set screw right here. And now we're on to nocking point and arrow selection. So the first thing I like to do is make sure my bow is level, because that's a very important step. And I'm just going to throw this bad boy right there. This is where the micro adjust on the October Mountain really shines. So boom, we're level right there. And now where a lot of people get aggravated is when they load their arrow and go to clip it on, if it doesn't have a tight, ooh. Well, I'm going to tell you we ain't using these nocks. So bonus lesson today, if you ever have that much play when you knock your arrow to the string, you probably need to go ahead and replace the nocks, because that could cause a partial dry fire, and I'm not trying to do that with my new bow. It's not uncommon for you to knock an arrow and it slide to the top. That's no big deal. But that right there, that's about a 1/8 of an inch, if not more, play, and that could cause issues. So we're gonna find a different knock. Let's see what happens when we throw an Easton X knock on there. Still slides to the top. Not nearly as much play. That right there is acceptable. So there's probably a half a dozen different ways to do what I'm about to show you, and that's tie a nocking point. But the first thing we want to do is make sure our arrow is level through the burger holes. Well, not necessarily straight through the middle of the burger holes, because a lot of bows really like to be in the upper third, but just level in general. So what I like to do is go ahead and take my D-loop, burn one end, and I'm going to use it as an anchor. And I'm going to come around here, slide that in, boom. And I'm just going to eyeball it, because I'm old school like that, I guess you can say. Now I know my bow's level. To me, it looks like the arrow shaft's going straight across the top, a little under the top of the burger holes, which is where I want it. So I'm going to leave that right there to hold my arrow in place while I tie the bottom nocking point. And that right there is about the amount of distance you want. Some people like it a little closer to the nock, but keep in mind when you draw this bow back and the string starts going at an angle, it will pinch down. And also, if you ever want to run a lighted nock, you're going to need to leave a little bit of room as well, because typically they're a little bigger than the standard nock that comes with any arrow. All right, so we got our nocking point set. So now I'm going to come down here with the D-loop. I'm going to start it a little high, because when I get on it with the pliers, it's going to pinch down on the top of that nocking point. Come right here with the old snippers. Whenever you start flaring out your D-loop, make sure you put your finger on the back of that knot, because obviously hitting it could push it through and loosen it, and we don't want that. Alright, so now we're going to come in here with our D-loop pliers. Going to tug on it just a little bit, not all the way. Then you want to come on both sides of the knot and make sure they close up snug. You do not want that to stay open. So with every hamskea, you're going to get this little sticky textured ordeal right here that's going to actually stick to the bottom of the limb if you don't have another way to tie the hamskea cable to it. But this comes standard with every hamskea, so I'm going to stick this on here, run my cable, tighten it down, and then move on to the next step. What you got to do is peel that back, and then I like to kind of go on the outer side of the limb. Don't want to get on the deadlock. Just let it adhese. And if you peel it off, the paint's not going to come off the limbs or anything, so don't worry about that. But at the same time, you got to want it to come off. It's pretty much there to stay. Now, I ain't going to lie to y'all. I've seen a lot of fancy, weird knots for this little ordeal right here. But in my opinion, what better knot than one that keeps tightening on itself? So I just tie, I think it's called a cinch knot, and pull it down. Make sure it's tight on the knot itself. Make sure it's in one of those grooves on that little pad right there. Boom. Now I'm going to cut and burn that. Alright, so we got our cable tied to the bottom. We're going to come up through this little ordeal right here on the hamskea. Then we're going to take our football and it's got grooves on both sides of the football, so you want to make sure your cable's in there. Snug it down a little bit. Start applying pressure, because obviously when you pull this tight, that pushes our whale's tail down, which is what we want until we're ready to shoot. And then we're just gonna tighten down this Allen key. So for a sight, I'm gonna go with the dual track center mass from Black Gold, who is also owned by Bowtech. That's why they're the only site that offers the center mass for this bow so far. The center mass sight slides right into the riser. Kind of select where you want it. I haven't used one of these before, so we're just gonna play the guessing game and roll with it right there on the third hole. Snug her down and on to the next step. Going to go with my favorite quiver brand, the Tight Spot, which this is another product that's owned by Bowtech. Well, technically Pure Archery Group owns them all, but this is strictly for the Bowtechs when their center mass line. And it's basically like a Sherpa. It plugs in up here on the riser, keep everything closer to the riser, more center, hence center mass. And literally one bolt through, snug her down. Then you can take your quiver, slides right onto that bracket. Oop, right there. I'm gonna mix it up a little bit on the bracket system and the quick disconnect. Gonna run bow finger this time, give it a whirl. I haven't used them in a long time, but never really had a problem with them. I just mainly use Conquest because it's usually what I have laying around. I forgot to mention this is a 10-degree down offset. If I was gonna run a wrist strap, I would obviously put that on first, then screw in this bolt, but I haven't ran one of those in years and don't really want to on this bow. So we've ran into a little bit of issue because the way this bow finger sets up, it doesn't really stick out very far, which is not allowing me to get where I need to on the back of this hole. So I'm going to show y'all a little trick. Here. Oh yeah. Now we're cooking. So typically you would have to change the draw length on your new bow, but since every bow's made for me, most of them come in at 29 inches, so don't have to do that to this bow. But what I do have to do, well, I don't have to, but it'd be a lot cooler if I did, is check the timing. If you're unfamiliar with how to time a bow or what that even means, basically it's like getting an alignment on your bow, same thing with your vehicle. And what I'm going to do is check to make sure when this string stop rotates around and hits this cable, this one's doing it at the exact same time. Because if it's not hitting at the same time, then you're going to see some cattywampus arrow flight and you're going to hate archery. And the easiest way and safest way and the most sensible way is to do it in your draw board. Last Chance Archery provides that attachment as well. So I'm going to throw it in here. You may hear some funny sounds. I promise it's the draw board, not the bow. This draw board's been used a lot. So this allows me to be able to watch the stops come around slowly, so I can check it very accurately. We're close, but not quite. If I want to move it just a little bit, I can adjust the press. So now I've got it hitting here, but not here. Let me show y'all. Your attention to this string stop right here. Let me get the angle right. Zoom in a little bit. You'll notice there's just a little bit of distance between the string stop and the string, or cable, however you want to call it. Then you come down here, that's my knees popping. This one's actually physically touching. So on that little bit of a minute difference, I'm going to do a half a twist, and I'm going to tell you where that twist needs to go. So the archery term for what we got going on here is the bottom cam is faster than the top cam. So we need to speed up the top cam. In order to do that, top cam, bottom cable, top cable, take up cable. We need to put a half a twist in this bottom cable, which is going to speed up my top cam just a little bit. And if roles were reversed, it'd be vice versa. We'd put a half a twist in this top cable to speed up the bottom cam. And it's just like that for any bow on the market, except a solo cam bow. They're a little different. Right about there. Now here's a little trick for y'all. You notice I've got my index finger holding tension on this string, which is keeping tension on all the cables and everything. Everything's still in the correct track. If I let go of this, chances are they'll all probably stay in their track, but it's really like a 60-40. There is a pretty big percentage chance that they could come out of the track. So what I like to do is, since I got tension on here, I know everything's in the correct track. Now I'm going to take my right hand, rotate this bottom cam, which is where I'm trying to get to for the cable, and that keeps everything tight save for the cable I'm trying to get my hands on and actually take off. So if I put tension back on my index, everything stays where it's supposed to. If I rotate that bottom cam, the only thing that goes slack is the cable I actually want to get my hands on. So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to take it off the post, and I'm going to tighten it 1/2 turn. Excuse me, that was not a good way to phrase it. A 1/2 twist. So I just put it back on. I'm going to put tension on with my index finger. I'm going to double check to make sure everything's still in its tracks where it should be. Teardrops, post, everything's delicious. Now I'm going to put it back in my draw board to make sure I did my job correctly. All right, I'm going to micro it just a hair. Oop, wrong way. Hitting there. Now they're hitting. Okay, so it's actually dead nuts. Let me show you. So same thing, if you look at this stop right here, you'll see that it is physically touching the cable. Come down here to the bottom stop. Same thing. Before we go set my peak height, I forgot to mention I am going to be running the Conquest free control bars on this bow. So per usual, going to load an arrow just for safety precautions. I don't want to shoot. I don't have the peep served in or anything. So I'm going to draw back, anchor in. Well, I was close. Peep's just a little low. I think that's going to be money. Yeah, we're going to roll with that. Well, that's going to be it for this bow setup video, guys. If y'all know of anything else y'all want to see on this channel, me working on it, building it, talking about it, drop it in the comments and let me know, and chances are I'll do it.